A big development in the tragic gun shooting involving Alec Baldwin that left the film's cinematographer, Helena Hutchins, dead and its director wounded. Authorities not ruling out today in their very first press conference criminal charges that could potentially come for any number of people on that set, including Alec Baldwin.
All options are on the table at this point. I'm not commenting on charges, whether they will be filed or not, or on whom. No one has been ruled out at this point.
We are working thoroughly to gather all the facts of the investigation, continue interviews, and further analyze and process the evidence.
Police confirming that there was indeed a live round in the handgun that Baldwin fired, and they believe that there were additional live rounds around the set. Greg, what did you think when you watched this today?
Well, I wasn't surprised because we knew that this whole set was a mess. I said this before, that if we'd stop dividing each other by politics or identity, Baldwin, the producer, could have benefited from the expertise of a genuine NRA instructor. I'm sure he wouldn't share the politics of that person, but he likely shared the politics of Annie Oakley Jr. And look where that got her. I mean, this so-called gun expert that they had was so bad that she actually freaked out Nicolas Cage. And it takes a lot to freak out Nicolas Cage. But when you look at her experience, there's no way she should have been near a gun. She had a bad reputation. If you look at social media, she's a deeply unserious person. And there's a rule you always got to go by with guns. And I'm a relatively new gun owner. People who pose with their weapons on Instagram or elsewhere should not ever be near weapons, because the desire to pose means that you're more interested and obsessed with being cool than with being safe. That's why a lot of
What about the Trump sons?
I don't see them posing with guns.
Well, they did with their big rifles.
No, that's a hunting.
He's an expert marksman.
And they're hunting. I'm not a big hunter. I'm not.
But I generally agree with that point.
Oh, well, thank you, Geraldo.
No, I think it's wow. Guns are.
We had a guy on the show.
They have their anatomy is insufficient. That's why they pose with.
Oh, come on. That's such a cliche.
Moving right along.
Oh, he drives a red car, so that means he has a tiny whatever.
Yeah, and we've seen your.
It's like a Playboy cartoon from the 70s.
All right. So we had a weapons specialist on the show today who talked about this gun. And it is a Colt 45 single action, which means that it takes two moves. And I know nothing about guns, so if I say something wrong, I know Katie maybe will correct me. But there's two actions. You have to pull the trigger and then cock the hammer. I talked to someone today who said, that should never happen during a rehearsal. First of all, you wouldn't do both of those motions when you're just trying to go through the motions and block a scene and get ready for it. There's a lot down the line here that could be potentially criminally liable.
Well, and the segment that you had on your show today of the guy showing exactly what happened was excellent for people who are not familiar, and I encourage them to find it and watch it. Out of hundreds of hours that I've had of training at Gunsight and other places, I have never been told that there is an accident. There's only negligence. This idea that someone handed Alec Baldwin the firearm and he didn't know that it was loaded. The number one rule of gun safety is to treat every single gun as if it is loaded. So this negligence idea is just not applicable if you're really serious about gun safety. The other thing is the fact that there was live ammunition at all on the set is completely irresponsible when you are having in a movie to point either a prop gun or in this case a real gun at another human being, because you shouldn't do that unless you're willing to destroy your target. Another rule of gun safety. The third thing is Alec Baldwin and everybody on the set that led up to this, the arrogance that they showed and the lack of respect for the capabilities of a firearm and the basic firearm safety is very evident here, which led to the death of this young woman and the injury of the director. And so at a minimum, you can be charged with negligent discharge just by negligently discharging your firearm. But this idea that somehow there's no responsibility for Alec Baldwin who pulled the trigger, there are no accidents. There's only negligence, and that is completely erased from this conversation.
Geraldo?
If I were the Santa Fe district attorney, I would charge involuntary manslaughter. And I say that with regret because I am an Alec Baldwin fan. I think that he's a terrific actor. But what he did here, clearly, here's the test for involuntary manslaughter in New Mexico. If you're texting while driving and you kill somebody, that's involuntary manslaughter. It doesn't take grotesque negligence. It takes recklessness. It takes criminal negligence. And I think that clearly in this case, it is at least as serious as the guy texting and driving and killing the pedestrian. I think that there'll be at least one charged, maybe 3 charged, and as much as it pains me to say, deservedly so.
Yeah, I mean, there were reports that they were doing target practice at night, the night before, and that may be how this gun ended up. You've also got people who walked off the set angry that morning, which also raises questions that will be addressed in this investigation.
I don't think he's going to get charged because he's a star, and he's a Democrat star, and when there's a high-profile case like this, politics are going to get involved. This guy's he's a Lorne Michaels guy. He's an NBC icon. He travels in the most elite Democrat Party circles in this country. He gets on the phone. He can talk to Obama, Clinton, whoever he wants. The 2 senators, New Mexico, Democrats. The mayor there, Democrat. The DA, I looked into her. Mary Carmick Outwise, hardcore Democrat, ran on restorative justice. Just dropped charges against a couple guys that broke down a war memorial. All right? She refuses to prosecute drug felonies. I just don't see someone like this in a situation like this where there's a lot of potential Hollywood movies on the line. You know, if they're going to nail a star like this for a so-called accident, which is really negligence, what other Hollywood studios are going to come and shoot in New Mexico? I think they're going to. I think they're going to take care of Alec.
That DA claimed that she was going to follow the evidence where it leads and apply it to New Mexico law. So until that happens, we'll see if she actually does that.